Tim Semelroth has had 3 lucky strikes in his life. In this podcast episode, he shares his story, how he became the managing partner of the largest PI law firm in the state of Iowa. Yes, he is the biggest fish in this relatively small pond, and they're doing great. He shares the story, how he got there. He shares what specifically he did and how his law firm ended up being at the top of the food chain in his state. Listen, learn, implement. Enjoy the show. Hi there. I have a small but really meaningful favor to ask you. I watch at the stats on our YouTube channel and Spotify channel, wherever most people listen and watch our podcast. And I see that over 80% of everybody who listens to it regularly is not a subscriber. I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel. And the reason for that is my mission and the mission of my team is to help as many small law firm owners to learn how to transform their law firms into better businesses, and so they in turn enjoy better lives. When you hit subscribe button, you tell these platforms that this is content worth listening, worth viewing, and they in turn will show it to many other small law firm owners and hopefully help me fulfill our mission of helping them create a better business and enjoy better lives. So would you please do me this favor? It would mean the world to me, and hit the subscribe button. And my promise to you is that I will continue to work hard at creating good content with practical ideas that help you and your teams grow better law firms. Thank you. Welcome to Grow Law Podcast. I have an amazing guest with me here today. Tim Semelroth of RSH Legal is managing partner of Iowa's largest PI law firm. If I'm not mistaken, as of about a year ago, you had 16 attorneys, which for an Iowa, a smaller state, roughly 3 million people there, is a large PI law firm. This is not NYC. This is not Miami. This is Iowa. This is big. And you have three locations, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we have 3 offices around the state, and so we're up to 17 lawyers now.
Amazing. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
It is uncommon to build a law firm of that size in any state, in any location. My assumption is that with that headcount, you're probably north of $10 million in annual revenue, well north of $10 million in annual revenue, which statistically speaking, for any small business, including law firms, your chances are like 1 in 2,500 to ever pass $10 million in revenue. So most never ever do. So you have done that. And I'm sure you have an amazing story to tell. But let's start with you doing mock-up trials since the middle school.
Wow. Well, it all started out when I was in 8th grade, and we had a new social studies teacher, and I decided to play a prank on him by supergluing his chair to the floor. And so he had the choice at that point to call my parents, get me in a lot of trouble. But he recognized that maybe I just had too much free time on my hands. And so he invited me to participate in a new extracurricular activity in Iowa called mock trial. And so that was my first exposure to the law, and I've loved it ever since.
You've had multiple lucky strikes in your life, as we talked about it before we hit the record button. That is incredible. It reminds me of a story of Louis Zamperini, who is a famed World War II pilot who crashed and spent 67 days on a raft out in sea in the Pacific. But his lucky strike came when he was a hooligan. Like, he was getting in trouble with the law in like early 30s all the time. And he would always outrun the cops. And his brother took him to jail one day and he said, this is what's going to end up happening to you unless you do something else. And so they talked to the local police chief. They're like, what should we do? And he's like, your brother is so fast. You should join the track team. A few years down the road, in 1936, he competed in the Olympics on the US side. He was that fast. So a lucky strike. All right. So you joined mock trial team in the 8th grade, and then you go on to college a few years later, and there was another lucky strike. What happened then?
Yes, so I went to college at Drake University, and I joined the college mock trial team there. one of my coaches was a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer named Rob Tully. And it just so happened my senior year, he gave his paralegal a vacation without checking his trial schedule. And so he realized that he needed somebody to help him with the trial. So he called me up in my dorm room, said, Tim, I need you to second chair a trial for me. Keep in mind, I'm still an undergrad. I'm not even in law school yet. And I said, Rob, I've got class. And he said, don't worry about class. I'll write you a note. Your professors will let you out of class. And so that was the first time I was ever in a real courtroom, second chairing a case before I ever went to law school.
There's like these two stories. I've never heard anything like that before. So a lucky strike, another lucky strike. And I quote you from another podcast episode that you did about a year ago. You said that you were born professionally on the third base. What does that mean?
Well, it means that most of the success that I've had, I can attribute to just being in the right place at the right time, just like we've talked about. And I try to remind myself of that. I mean, just because things are going well isn't because anything special about me. It has a lot more to do with the opportunities that I've had. And so the third big lucky strike was after law school. I was clerking for a judge, and the judge was asking me what I was going to do next. And I mentioned, well, I've got a job offer here, and I could go here. But then there's this lawyer who his name is John Riccolo, and I hear that he might be looking for an associate. And the judge looked at me and said, John Riccolo is my next door neighbor. And if he would hire you, you should go work for him. Mm-hmm. And so that was the third example, that I just happened to be clerking for a judge who lived next door to who in his day was one of the top plaintiff's personal injury lawyers in the state of Iowa. So I ended up meeting him and being hired by he and his partner. And I've worked at that law firm ever since. Those two are both retired, but I joke and tell people I've had the same parking spot for 27 years.
That's amazing. So you've been there for 27 years?
Yes.
So we're recording this in September of 2025. So it was 1998 when you started with this firm?
Yes.
And as we started talking about this before we hit the record button, early in your career there, you got in charge of marketing. Before you got in charge of marketing, how large was the firm?
It was just the three of us, these two great lawyers and me. And I did whatever they needed me to do, which was a lot of brief writing, second chairing them to go to trial. But a couple years in, so this would have been late 90s, they called me into the office and say, hey, our Westlaw representative is going to be hosting a meeting to discuss this new service that Westlaw is offering. They're offering to build lawyers' websites. And since you're the youngest guy here, you have to go to this meeting and figure out how to get us a website. So that was the beginning of my marketing career.
Got it. That's amazing. So you're now 25 years into your marketing career at your law firm.
Yeah. Yes.
With the current size of the law firm, do you practice law at all, or are you completely on the business side of things?
I still have cases, but my practice is a lot smaller. I almost exclusively just do large commercial truck accident cases. And so that's where I've specialized my practice, and I still have active cases going, but it's a lot different than if we'd have talked 5 years ago. I was handling over 100 cases myself with 3 different paralegals, and so it's definitely been a transition that I made about 5 years ago to really focus more on marketing and the firm management side of things.
Let's stay there for a moment. Why did it take so long to get away from mostly practicing law to mostly practicing business, which are two very different type of activities?
Well, because I love being a trial lawyer, and that's what made me go to law school. I didn't go to law school because I wanted to be a manager or to be in charge of a business that now has over 50 employees in three different locations. I mean, I've learned to enjoy those things and appreciate those things, but my dream growing up as a kid was to be in court making closing arguments, and so that's been where I've spent most of my career.
That's always so interesting to me that so many attorneys either start or buy into an existing law firms. And I'm like, if you really wanted to just practice law, why go into business ownership? Because running operations is a completely different skill set and a completely different to-do list than being a trial lawyer or a estate planning lawyer or criminal defense lawyer. Two different things.
Well, what really drove me was when I realized that to be a great trial lawyer, you had to have great cases.
Mhm.
And I'm just enough of a control freak to know that I wasn't just going to wait to see what walked in the door.
Uh-huh.
I had to take that into my own hands.
And if I remember correctly, you're the only certified truck crash attorney in the state of Iowa. I think I saw it on your LinkedIn profile. Is that true?
That's correct. Yes. I, gosh, I'm trying to think. It was maybe 6 or 7 years ago when the National Board of Trial Advocacy first recognized truck accident law as its own specialty. I was one of the first 30 lawyers in the country who passed the exam, went through board certification, and so it's definitely something that's been an important milestone in my career.
Mm. Did you get a CDL?
I don't. And though I've driven a semi
Mm-hmm.
multiple occasions, that there's a truck driving school that does a course for lawyers in Montana that I've attended as a student and also as an instructor. And so when I've been driving a semi, in a closed course, they have a proving ground that you can drive at, and you can go actually to a drag racing track outside of Billings. I once looked at the instructor and said, "What do you think?" And he said, "I hope you're a good lawyer." Um,
So you were not
so
a very good truck driver.
well, the my kryptonite as a truck driver is backing up, and so I was talking to another lawyer who had a CDL, and I asked him how long uh, it took him to be able to do that, and he said that he spent about, I think it was 30 to 40 hours of driving time before he could pass the
Yeah.
CDL, and so I thought to myself, uh, he's probably a little better driver than I am, so I'd have to. It would definitely take longer than that for me to be able to pass the CDL. It's I One of the big things about driving a semi, uh, learning more about what they do is you come away with great respect for truck drivers. They
Mhm.
are
It's not easy.
they are real professionals, and they have a very difficult job.
Yeah, I've heard that numerous times. And my team, so I operate a marketing company for those who do not know. My team worked for a truck accident only law firm. I think they were out of DC area. Don't remember the name anymore. It's been a couple of years. But all of their attorneys were required to pass and maintain CDL. Like if you can't do it, can't do these cases. Have to.
So I'll tell you, it's changed
It's changed.
because a couple of years ago, you could still get a CDL without passing the driving test. So you could get it with the book test. Uh, Now you cannot get a CDL without passing the driving test. So I feel pretty confident I could pass the written exam uh, with all the cases I've handled over the years. But the driving would definitely take some work.
That sounds like an awful idea to let somebody drive a 53 foot without passing the driving test. Really, I did not know that.
Well, so the CDL, yes, at the time the CDL didn't necessarily require, the driving it, being able to pass the full driving test, and so, but a lot of companies, require driving
Hmm.
tests and things like that. So it's evolved. I mean, in that sense, the law is improving because it does require, uh, you know, having the driving test pass in order to be able to be on the road.
That would only make sense. Got it. All right. So 25 years ago or so, you being the youngest kid in your law firm, you take over marketing, and it starts with, I guess, Westlaw website.
It did, and then also I was involved in the Yellow Pages ads, which shows how old I am. It's like talking about Betamax tapes and things like that. But so yeah, I just about everything that is involved in marketing a law firm, I've been personally involved in, whether it was uh, working with the vendors, putting together a website, whether it was designing a Yellow Pages ad, whether it was, I even did our initial PPC campaigns. I got a book at Barnes and Noble and learned how to do those. And then, of course,
You did them
for a
yourself.
number, yes, yes, for a while. I don't do it anymore,
Mhm.
but I learned how to run pay-per-click campaigns, and then uh, for a time I even bought our own TV spots, working with the television companies individually. And so one of the things that has evolved in my career as a marketer for our firm is that you realize within a short period of time that there are other people who can do those jobs better than you, and it's a matter of putting together a good team
And they're much
to
cheaper
help
than
you.
you. Much cheaper than you.
Yes, yes. Well, that's what I tell people. That the greatest hire that we made that advanced our firm as a whole was when we hired a full-time marketing director.
Mhm.
Because up until that time, I was probably one of the most expensive marketing directors in the state of Iowa, at least.
I believe it. And you were part time. So not a singular focus on growing through additional lead acquisition, which
Yes, yes. That's the problem, is that you can start, if you're starting out your firm, you can start out dealing with marketing, but you're going to learn a lot of marketing comes down to consistent repetition, consistent effort. And if you still have a caseload and a trial comes up or big depositions are happening, then everything gets put on the back burner. And so that's one of the most important hires our firm ever made, is when we bit the bullet
mhm.
and said, you know what, we need a full-time marketing director at our firm.
Yeah, I second that. The most expensive decisions that small businesses make, including so many law firms, is one, hiring really cheap marketing companies. They fail with incredible consistency, about 100%. And then managing marketing as a part time thing. It is arguably one of the most expensive, important functions in your business because that's what attracts cases. That's what
Exactly.
feeds everyone. All of payroll depends on getting those leads in.
Well, that's why I tell people you can be the greatest technical trial lawyer in the world,
Yeah.
but if you're not working on good cases, then nobody will ever know, and you will never be recognized for your skills. It's really important that you are working on a steady stream of good cases to really uh, be the kind of lawyer that you aspire to be.
Mhm. I find something very interesting in what you said. So you're in charge of marketing and you have a full time marketing director. It's that important to your firm.
Yes. So I am in charge in the sense that once a week I have a meeting with our marketing team, and we will go through priorities. So I will help them set priorities. I will pay attention to the numbers. uh, we'll make big decisions about initiatives or spends or things like that. And then I tend to be pretty involved in the messaging still, but uh, there is a team that makes sure that everything happens on a day-to-day basis.
That's perfect. So I want to put a huge emphasis on what you just said, and here's why. Ladies and gentlemen, what Tim does is an equivalent of a chief marketing officer. Chief marketing officer does not do what specialists do. Chief marketing officer does the thinking and helps the rest of the team make better decisions. So if your law firm is smaller and you want to grow faster, you just have to graduate to that role or hire someone who doesn't need to graduate to that role because they're already there. That person who you're going to hire, whether you call them marketing director, chief marketing officer, any position, you have to have someone who does the thinking and not the doing. Because if they're doing the doing and not the thinking, the outcome of what they do is not so good. You have to have somebody who does the thinking. It's a full-time, well, maybe not a full-time job for a well-established law firm. You have a sizable org chart, 50 people there, 3 offices. But for most organizations, it's a full-time job to do the thing. As one of my advisors, and he's a top guy, he has 18,000 employees across multiple businesses. He says, you have to earn the right to do thinking for a living. He's like once you get there, you're good. Like your work can be walking on the beach and thinking. It is your responsibility. It doesn't matter where you are. I recently moved to the state of Florida, and he lives here as well. He's like, every morning, 7 to 8 to 9 a.m. Here are my 2 hours of just thinking when I walk the beach. This is when we usually have really good weather. Even during the summer months when it's really hot, between 7 and 9 a.m. it's very pleasant. So he's like, I walk the beach and they think. And they think and they send messages. I send message, do this, need you to do that, please do that. And it's a really, really heavy thinking job, not the doing job. So I love it that you organize your marketing department like that. By the way, tell me, you said you have a marketing team. So we'll call you a CMO in charge of marketing. So you have a director of marketing. Who else do you have there?
So we have so our marketing director has an assistant who works for us virtually. He actually lives in South Africa.
Love it.
And then I consider the rest of the marketing team to be our vendors. And so we have, our web development company, our PPC manager, our television and outdoor company that we work with. And so a big part of our marketing director's job is that she coordinates the work with these vendors and she holds them accountable. And that's huge because that's something that honestly I don't have the time to do. And that's not my favorite thing to do, but she's great at it. And so, but she and her assistant make a really great team between the two of them because our marketing director, her background, she was an English major, so she's an excellent writer, and she also just gets things done. She's an implementer. Her assistant, who lives in South Africa, he is very skilled at video production, video editing. He's very skilled at graphic design, and so between the two of them, they do a lot in house, and so that's great. But ultimately, we recognize that we can have great expertise in house, but ultimately, for a lot of projects, you have to have a relationship with the vendor. You can't have a specialist in web design and a specialist in social media who all just happen to be working for you unless you're a lot bigger than we are.
That's an amazing insight. And I think for most law firms, unless you're well into 9 figures, it is substantially more economical to outsource all of these specialties than to bring them in house. Because this will get very expensive. You mentioned that you have multiple teams. a website team, a pay-per-click team. I'm sure you have an SEO team. Are any of those from the same vendor?
Our so our web development company does our SEO work,
Hmm.
which in large part is a lot of link building,
Hmm.
which is definitely something that I highly recommend that people outsource. They also do PPC, but the reality is that we have had a long-term relationship with the PPC vendor. Back, he was the person that I started working with when I decided
Mm.
that I should no longer manage our PPC campaigns, and he does good work. And so that's always been something that we like our relationship with him. He's a good steward of our money, and so we've continued to work with him.
Got a separate social media marketing team?
Yes. So and that's because in 2025 we made a commitment to learn about social media channels that we hadn't previously been working with in a professional way or strategic way. So we had been posting our blog videos on YouTube, and we had a Facebook page. But I mean, something we realized over a year ago is that that really is a specialty in and of itself,
Hmm.
and so we found partners to deal with who specialize purely in YouTube marketing, or whether it's the kind of posts that work on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. Those are different things than what we had been creating previously.
It's amazing. You have quite an ecosystem of marketing vendors who all report to your marketing director, who reports to you. Across
Yes.
across all of these vendors and all of the channels that they're covering, if you're okay answering this question, how many leads, like qualified leads, does your firm actually attract on a monthly basis?
Qualified leads. I would have to look into that because we
Ballpark.
do. Uh, well, I know that we speak to over 300 people a month. But as you mentioned, Iowa is a small
Hmm.
state. We only have 3 million people in the entire state. And so we don't just do traditional personal injury. We
Hmm.
have lawyers that do workers' compensation, that do medical malpractice, nursing home. We have a team of two lawyers who do plaintiff's employment law. And so we have a lawyer that does Social Security disability appeals. And so, because of that, I most of the time when I'm making decisions, I'm making decisions in a particular channel as opposed to overall. So the in terms of how many qualified leads we have, I only I only look at those in the context of a particular channel, not
Got it.
overall firm.
Got it. So, but about 300 conversations with prospects, not
Yes.
engaged clients, but prospects. It's always so heartwarming for me to hear such things. Like I talk to various size law firms, and obviously, the larger the lead flow, the larger the firm. So I always can work backwards. For example, if you want to build $100 million business, this is the number of leads that you need to get per month. And for most people, it's like super not intuitive, but I'm like, because leads convert into signed engagement letters, convert into cases, convert into revenue, convert into payroll, convert into more marketing. Like, oh, got it. So it's just X number of leads per month. So I got to talk with, I'm sure you've heard of Lerner and Rowe, very large law firm,
Yes.
multiple markets. I got to sit down and talk with their chief intake officer. I'm like, how many leads do you get a month? He was like, average 9,000 leads a month.
Wow.
9,000 leads a month. But that's what it takes to feed this ginormous machine. At the time of this conversation, they had like 450 lawyers. So that's what it takes. 9,000 leads equals 450 lawyers and support staff, and everybody else gets to eat. And many of them eat very well, right? But he's like, 9,000 leads is what it takes. I'm like, cool. How many of them out of the gate, you disqualify half of them, just half. And out of that half, how many of them are actually qualified? He has like out of the 50%, the 30%. So it's like 70% just nah, and 30% is who we want. And out of the 30%, he wouldn't tell me how many of them sign up, but looking at the head count, you could kind of figure out. Yeah.
Sure. Well, isn't it funny how the 80-20 principle you see in so many aspects of life? And so it wouldn't surprise me if of all of their leads that ultimately 20% of them are the ones that they actually sign up, because we find that that you always have categories of cases or different lead sources that the 80-20 principle appears again and again in business.
Yeah. My theory is that they sign up 20% of the 50%. So 4,500 out of 9,000 go away right away. And out of the 4,500, they probably sign up 20%, which is 10% of the starting volume, which makes sense. If you sign up 900 cases a month, it's quite a volume.
That's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work. And this is, I talked to Glenn Lerner, and I asked him the story, like, how did you get started? He's like, I was a starving attorney in Vegas. And somebody told me, like take whatever money you got and buy one billboard. This is 1998. So like internet is in its like early stages. Nobody thinks Google. Nobody goes to Google to look for lawyers, so got a billboard. He's like, I had $10,000. I spent $10,000 on the billboard. I signed 66 cases in the following 30 days and I was hooked.
Wow.
Yeah. Just like that. He's a big time marketer. Absolutely. Big time marketer. Just like John Morgan, and you, for your size, for your state, this is huge. What's the nearest competitor to you, size-wise?
In terms of number of lawyers, I would say maybe 10, maybe a little less than that.
Yeah.
The thing about plaintiffs lawyers, trial lawyers in general, we tend to have really big egos, and so it's unusual when you find a big group of trial lawyers who can work together.
I think it comes down to the brand, right? If you want to work for a brand that's well known, so for example, you having the brand that is the largest PI law firm in the state of Iowa. If I was an attorney, and if I wasn't a marketer, and if I wasn't like really business minded, I'd be like, yeah, that's brand recognition. I do want to be associated with such a group. So to me, that would be a fairly easy decision. But I also know that your law firm didn't just grow through marketing. It didn't just grow organically. You also have acquired some law firms.
Yes.
How did that start?
Well, it actually started with marketing. And what I mean by that is, we saw an opportunity to get involved in a practice area. And so we started ramping up our marketing into that practice area. And, we had lawyers who had gotten training and could be able to handle those cases. And we hadn't marketed for longer than maybe 6 months. And the law firm in town who had that same practice area called me up and said, "Hey, I see that you're getting into our practice area. How would you just like to buy our firm?" And so that's how we acquired our first law firm. And
how many years has it been?
Oh gosh, it's been over 10 years. Yeah. And then, since that time it's primarily been other lawyers, who have other specialties, and they come to us. And the nice thing about our brand, our URL is fightingforfairness.com. And you've got two names that are easy to pronounce and spell, but, we did not. The guy that founded our firm, his name is John Riccolo. And then my last name is Semelroth. And then, my partner's last name is Henningsen. And so that those were three names that nobody could spell and nobody could pronounce. And so we realized that in addition to starting to call ourselves by our initials, RSH Legal, we needed a URL that people could spell. And so that's why probably 20 years ago, not quite 20 years ago, we registered fightingforfairness.com. And the nice thing about that URL, it's easy to spell, easy to remember, and it really fits for all kinds of injury and disability work. And so, we have lawyers approach us and say, "Hey, you don't appear to have anybody that does this type of work. My work fits within your brand. You should hire me and I'll start this practice area for you." And so it's always been driven by the marketing. And I think the reason why is that people look at us, realize that we've got a professional quality marketing operation, and they think, "Gosh, if we hooked up with these guys, they could make sure I was working on good cases."
Wow. How many acquisitions have you made in this last decade or so?
Three.
Three.
Yeah.
And every time it was an add-on, like another sub-practice area?
Yes.
All of the folks who sold you their law firms, did they stay?
Let's not for, I mean, two of them not for very long, and one, yes. I mean, and so it's really just kind of depends where they are in their career. A lot of times lawyers don't look at that opportunity until they're ready to retire or they're close to ready to retire. And so we have a pretty detailed checklist that we go through because we're looking it's not just that we want to go into a different practice area, or not just that we want to go into a business with a particular lawyer. We're hoping to expand our firm. And so, we're not just asking for, what are their, what they make last year or how many active cases they have. I mean, we want to know, what, we want to know their website statistics. We want to know how many phone calls they get. We want to know how many addresses they have of past clients, because we want to plug that all into our firm marketing system, so that not only are we picking up that practice area, but hopefully we're getting new cases for our other existing practice areas.
Your business acumen is fairly uncommon for the industry. I've interviewed a lot of people, and you have done a lot of things, including acquisitions, which is uncommon. If you don't mind sharing, if a law firm came to you today and they were an interesting acquisition target for your law firm, what pricing multiple or what pricing model would you apply to a law firm you'd be buying?
Well, I think the easiest way to put it is, a lot of times we are going to pay based upon their current inventory, but we're going to make our profit based upon their intellectual capital, I guess, or their reputational capital. And so we need to make sure that the numbers work based upon their current cases. If we're bringing in their cases, in other words, if all that ever happened was, we took over their cases and successfully resolved them, that would have to make sense economically. But where we hope to make our profit, or where we're able to grow, is that we're able to take their existing assets, their URL, their phone number, their client list, and turn that into new cases. And so those are things that I think are hard to value, because a lot of firms don't tend to those things as well as they should. But that's where we think that our experience, our expertise can turn those things into something of value.
In your 4 acquisitions or so, have most of them or all of them been like sub $2 million in revenue?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because like in the slightly larger business arena, pricing would be very, very different, right? You would look at EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, and you would apply a reasonable multiplier depending on how much of that EBITDA they had. So I'm always like when I talk to law firm owners, and I talk to a spectrum of law firm owners, those who started a couple of years ago and have a few thousand dollars in revenue, and those who do 50, 60, $100 million in revenue. And it's always interesting, like when they're younger, we talk about like, how do you grow this thing? And when they're a little bit older, we talk about how do we build up the value to make it interesting to be a target for acquisition that would actually be like valuable to them, set them for the rest of their life and potentially their kids, and in some cases even grandkids, right? So this is when you're talking about your EBITDA, or let's just call it pure profit, right? Is many, many, many million
Well,
dollars.
the big advice I would give to
Mm-hmm.
somebody who wants to be acquired is would be music to your ears, because I know you're a numbers guy,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the best way to be acquired is to know your numbers, because then you can make a compelling case to somebody who wants to buy you. But if you don't know your numbers, I mean, if you can't tell me what your call count is, if you can't tell me what your website traffic is, if you can't tell me, what your list is of past clients and when the last time is you contacted them through a newsletter, e-newsletter, something like that, then that's not as appealing to me as somebody who can cite those numbers. And so, I mean, everybody can go look at their tax returns, right? But it's often, the real opportunities are available in the other numbers.
Yeah. As you were saying this, I thought of Shark Tank. Whenever there's an entrepreneur or an inventor who goes there and doesn't know their numbers, they get dismissed very, very quickly. Unless they have
Mhm.
a one of a kind invention and it's a super profitable idea that they've made. But for everybody else, and it really helps to have an org chart. Like you have a mature organization. It sounds like you have a very mature org chart. Like having that mature org chart will take you out of the weeds, like really working as a doer of things, like a specialist, and actually put you into a position where most of the time that you spend is on thinking. And if you do not have to do all the time, you will know those numbers because that's how you manage your business, right? You look at the numbers. Like in the business world, if you ever think about like one day we're all going to retire. If you own a business, a law firm, a marketing company, hospital, doesn't matter. You're a shoemaker, whatever. Like you're going to retire. And that business is going to go somewhere. Either it's going to go and just close, or you may be a good target for acquisition. And the way that today, in 2025, professional service organizations like a law firm or marketing company would be valued, if you have $2 million in profit or less, you're probably going to be 3x or three times that profit. And if it's $2 million or more, it's going to be 5x. And if you have something special there, it's going to be 6, 7. If you're very, very special and you're larger, like I've made an investment into a rapidly growing service company, their target is to be acquired for $500 million. I'm like, what will it take to get acquired for $500 million? And they're like, it's very easy. $40 million in profit. We do $40 million in profit, we can easily sell for 12.5x. I'm like, who's going to buy it? Like, here are private equity companies that are going to buy this business. How do you know? They bought similar types of business for 12 and a half times profit or EBITDA. Very formulaic, like super formulaic. And growing business, again, if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube and you're thinking, how will I ever, like just think about like your profit is basically a function of the number of leads that you're going to get, that are going to convert into number of signed engagement letters, that will convert into number of cases and number of dollars in revenue. And if you operate your law firm well, at the end of the year, you're going to have like 15 to 20% left in pre-tax profit. You multiply that by whatever multiplier applies. Under 2 million, 3, over 2 million, 5, well over 2 million, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 if you get to 40 million, and you're set for life. So yeah, knowing numbers is very important. One of the last questions, if not the last question, thinking back to when you were born professionally on the third base, what were your worries at the time? What do you like wish you would tell your much younger self to not worry about?
I wish that I would have reached out to specialists sooner. I think that the curse of a trial lawyer is that we think that we can learn a lot of different things because that's what we have to do in our job, right? You know, it's like I have to know something about medicine. I have to know something about trucking. I have to know something about, you know, whatever the area of litigation is. And you get in such a habit of, oh, I'm just going to teach myself that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing that I wish that I would have gotten over sooner is the idea that sometimes it's okay just to reach out to an expert, and and the sooner you do that is when you're going to see the real growth. I mean, don't get me wrong; it is helpful. It makes you a good consumer to understand what you're buying, and I still do that. I still educate myself on SEO so I can have discussions with our SEO vendor. I still, you know, educate myself about, you know, television so I can talk to our TV buyer. But the reality is that big growth comes from a level of expertise that you're never going to have
Mm-hmm.
when you're practicing law. And so I wish I would have reached out sooner and not tried to do so much myself.
That's wisdom.
Well, you know what they say about wisdom, right? It comes from bad decisions.
100%. And by the way, I think what you just said, curse of trial lawyers, it's, or maybe you used a different word, but I think it's just intelligent people want to do things because first it's the allure of figuring it out. But once you figure it out, like, hell, I can just do this myself. I can do pay-per-click advertising campaigns. Why not? I already know how they work. I bought the book at Barnes and Noble. I read it. But it ain't rocket science. It's not trial law. It's a lot easier than trial law. So I'm going to go do that and do trial law. And then there's SEO and the website and so many other things. But wisdom is to know that I just think about it this way. It's like you don't have enough years in life to do it all. So handing off like one of mine and my business partners' annual goal is to fire ourselves from another major role. And we have a very sizable organization, and yet both he and I still carry like or wear three hats. So like right now we're in the process of hiring someone who is going to take one of those hats off of me. So I'm like, okay, cool. So one more position that I fired myself from. And ultimately we want to get to the point where we just think. We just think. And it's wonderful. Like one of my icons is Warren Buffett, who's 95 and still he works full time. Yes, he is about to retire and just become like chairman, who doesn't work 6, 7 days a week, as he has done as a week as he has done for the previous 84 years. But he's built himself quite a position where he thinks. His whole job is to read, think, and make better decisions. Read, think, and make better decisions. Tim, it's been such an honor having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing all the wisdom and your story. Amazing story. 3 lucky strikes. Unbelievable.
Yes, yes. Well, it's been a great conversation. I have a feeling that if you and I were in the same room, we'd be talking for hours.
4 hours, 100%. Thanks again.
Thank you. Have a good